Hey everyone, and welcome to the first video in my boss series guide, in which I'm going to be showing you how to unlock the different bosses in Gloomhaven Digital and some tips and tricks on how to actually defeat those final scenarios for you, because they can be a bit tricky sometimes. Now, the bosses in Gloomhaven Digital Guildmaster mode are the same bosses that you will find in the campaign tabletop version and in the final campaign. They're just kind of under different circumstances, if you like. So there will be some similarities to these bosses. So the things that they can do, their cards, their abilities are going to be the same as the campaign version. So bear that in mind. If you want to keep yourself completely spoiler free from the campaign, then doing the bosses will kind of spoil some of the bosses maybe for you in the campaign, but also you can carry over some of these tips on how to beat these guys over to your campaign too. As always, if you do find the information useful, please consider tossing the video a like and subscribing for more guides. And always come check me out at Twitch at twitch.tv/mandatoryquest, where I stream every Monday, Wednesday and Sunday. All right, let's just get straight into it. So today's video is going to be on the Inox Bodyguard, which is the combined story mission boss for the Brute and the Scoundrel. In order to reach this boss, you're going to have to complete all of the Brutes and all of the Scoundrel's story missions. They have 3 each. As with all of the different mercenaries and all of the different story missions, you will have to reach level requirements in order to do this. The level requirements for the first 3 story missions are level 2, level 3 and level 5. So you must reach these levels anyway in order to do the story missions. In order to reach many of the story quest locations, you're actually going to have to do quite a lot of travel missions. You're going to have to explore the map quite a lot. So my advice is to just keep doing the travel missions as much as possible, level your characters up, do your story quests along the way, but focus on travel missions, especially if you'd like to try and get to the bosses quicker. Once you have completed both characters' level 5 third and final story mission, you will get the boss mission unlocked up here, which you can tell by the little kind of skull icon that you get in the story and above the actual mission itself. And in here you must be at least level 6 on the Brute, at least level 6 on the Scoundrel. You don't have to be level 6 on any other character. It's just that you must use those 2 characters. They must be at least level 6, and you can bring, another 2 characters or another 1 character if you would like. I will say though that if you are level 6, you may want to wait a little bit longer to actually tackle these missions. It may well be unlikely that you are actually level 6 at this point in time, because unless you go straight for it and you race for it, it's probably fairly unlikely. You're probably a much higher level than level 6 by the time you get to these missions. Right, now we've done the requirements, let's jump into the boss. So every boss battle in Gloomhaven Digital Guildmaster will start with at least 1 room of minions for you to deal with first. Usually kind of designed to slow you down, essentially, to make it a little bit more tricky for you. You're never going to spawn straight into a room with the boss right there. The boss is always going to be holed up somewhere at the back of the scenario. So you're going to be sort of facing them when you're already maybe a bit weakened because you've taken some damage. You've maybe had to burn some cards. Now, my advice for getting through these opening rooms, depending on, what enemies you're dealing with, is trying to get through as quick as possible. Don't worry necessarily about burning too many cards. I would just try and make sure that you get through these initial rooms in decent condition, so that when you do get to the final room, you are actually, equipped and ready to go and be able to fight them. You can avoid burning cards, but if you end up taking a load of damage and you end up getting to here and, you've only got 1 or 2 health, then that's going to be really difficult for you. However, if you manage to complete this, get through nice and quickly, get there, maybe you've burned a card or 2 just to do some damage, just to kind of make sure that you're safe. And yeah, you'll find that the actual final mission will be much easier. I'm not going to hold your hand too much in these initial couple of rooms for this particular boss, but because it's Night Demons and Archers, you will have to go early, and you're going to need to control them pretty well, because otherwise they have some big attacks. And if you start burning cards due to damage before you even get into the boss room, then that's going to be a bit difficult for you. So definitely try and use your cards quite aggressively for the first room, at least, I would say, to try and at least get through in a decent way without having lost too many resources and not on too much low health. Also, on this scenario, make sure that you're using the traps to your full advantage. There's quite a lot of decent trap positions in this scenario, so make sure that you're pushing enemies. So if you've got the Brute, you've got plenty of push, definitely use it. You need to use these traps to kill these enemies quickly. So we've entered the boss room and you can see the Inox Bodyguard boss at the back there, 30 health. That's just because of the number of mercenaries we bought and the level of difficulty and that we're playing at on our party level. So that can change. Now, it's important to talk about bosses a little bit in the sense of how bosses actually work, because if you haven't played the board game, you may not understand how bosses work. So how bosses work is that they all have the same ability deck. It is just that each boss has 2 specials that they can draw, which will be different. So what I'll do is I'll put up on screen now a little representation for you of what the ability deck of a boss looks like, so what they could possibly draw. And what I'll also do is I'll put up on screen the actual boss card for the Inox Bodyguard, so you can see what it is that they can possibly do and what their specials relate to and what their kind of health is like. So as you can see here, we are playing against the Inox body at level 6 essentially. So it's got 15 times C, C being characters that we've got in, so 2 characters, 15 times 2, that's 30 health. And you can see here the specials on the right hand side that this enemy can do. Now all of this information is kind of hidden in digital. It's there, but it's presented in a slightly different way, so you don't get to maybe see this, but essentially this gives you an idea of what this enemy can do. So special 1 is that it's going to move -1, it's going to attack -1, but it's going to do a big AoE attack, and you can see that it's going to attack from that grey square in the 2 hexes in front of it and the 3 hexes behind those 2 hexes. So potentially a nice big AoE attack that can do a lot of damage. And special 2 is move +0, attack +0, but retaliate 5. So makes it very, very difficult for you to actually hurt this with a melee character, which unfortunately the Brute and Scoundrel are. So this is definitely a tough enemy for this guy to deal with if he's going to be drawing that special 2. You can also see that the character is immune to disarm, poison, muddle, and stun, not to wound, which is important because that's something that we're definitely going to want to do. And also you can see that he has 4 movement and his attack is 3 plus the number of characters, so attack would be 5 here. So a difficult boss to deal with, not the worst in terms of special abilities that we can see, but special 2 in particular is very, very difficult for us to deal with, and they can draw these fairly regularly. As you can see from the layout of the deck, it is full of specials, so we do have to be aware of this. Jumping back to the game, we've also got 3 night demons to deal with, regular night demons here. We should be able to deal with them with fairly amounts of ease, really, with the Scoundrel, with our Visage being able to kill basically an enemy as long as it's on its own. So we need to try and separate these night demons so that we can do that on following turns. We also need to concentrate on getting a wound up on this bodyguard fairly early, because with 30 health it's going to be around for quite a few rounds, so wound can become very, very valuable. It's unfortunate that it's immune to poison, which means it'll be a bit more difficult for us to hit. Also, ranged attacks, we're going to need to start focusing on this guy too, because if the retaliate starts to come and hurt us, then that could be an issue. So what we're going to focus on in this particular room is I will go through this sort of room and I will fast forward to various points in this room, but I'll give you a general idea of what we're going to try and do. It is a good idea to try and clean up the minions before the boss. You do have to kill all enemies regardless. It might seem a little bit counterintuitive, but if you can kill things quickly, then you should go down that route. So although it would be great for us to focus and kill the bodyguard first, I do think facing down 3 night demons is a bit problematic. So let's try and clean up a few, maybe not all 3 of them, but let's try and clean up this room a little bit before we actually start to tackle the boss itself. Okay, so one thing we've managed to do so far is we managed to kill one of the night demons. We've got them a little bit lower as well. We are starting to run a little bit out of cards and resources though, so it's going to be tricky to finish this scenario. One completely valid option is to go for an immobilize type strategy, where you can just immobilize this bodyguard and keep it stuck at the back of the room for a while and then try and clean up with these 2. But I've made it a little bit harder for myself by just using just these 2 characters. But absolutely, if you could bring in a character that has immobilized, that works really, really well against this bodyguard and against these night demons. So you could always use that. Okay, so now it's just us and the bodyguard. So we need to try and finish this bodyguard off. It's going to be tricky. Another thing to think about when you're fighting this boss is to try and avoid being in these hexes. So to try and avoid actually putting yourself in a position when this attack that can do the AoE and multi-target will actually hit both of your heroes, or more than one of your mercenaries. So you can always kind of like move away. Remember, he's going to move into a position where he thinks he can get us, where unfortunately for him, he can't. So we've positioned ourselves really well here to stop ourselves from potentially taking some unnecessary attacks from this. The worst card that this guy can possibly draw for you is really the Retaliate when you're trying to do lots of damage. It's really, really sucky. So now once you've managed to clear the rest of the room, or you're just down to hopefully just the Bodyguard, it should be fairly simple. We haven't even used our smoke bomb combo yet. This should definitely be something that you're looking to do. I actually don't need to do it because night has been generated and dark's been generated so readily for me that I've actually managed to use stick to the shadows very regularly, so it hasn't been too much of an issue really. What we do need to do though is we need to continue to do as much damage as possible, so we'll get in there early with flanking strike and we'll just basically just start wailing on this guy. All right, will we kill him? There we go. A ×2 at the end there to finish the boss off. So to quickly recap the Inox Bodyguard, this boss is weak to wound and to immobilize in particular. You have lots of access to wound on the Scoundrel, but immobilize, you only have the top of defensive tactics, I think, or at least the build that I play. I usually only have the top of defensive tactics for the Brute. You may want to consider bringing a Mind Thief along for some extra immobilize, perhaps a Tinkerer, but the Tinkerer is more of a burn. So try and prioritize maybe a third character with immobilize if it's something you're struggling with, because you can definitely lock this character down while you deal with the other 3 minions in the room. Nice and easy. Also, immobilize will just help you so much in the first 2 rooms too, because you'll stop those night demons from maybe hurting you. So immobilize just generally very good this scenario. Things to be really careful about is the special 1 and the special 2. The special 1, if you position correctly, you can basically make sure that the boss never really gets the big AoE attack off, and even then it's a small attack usually, so it shouldn't be too bad for you. But bear in mind, if you've taken a load of damage and you wander into the wrong positioning, you can get hit by this, and yeah, boss draws a ×2 against you, the boss draws a ×2 against you, right? There's nothing you can really do about that, so be careful with that. Now the special 2 is arguably more dangerous depending on your party, especially if you're trying to hit the Brute's trying to hit this guy quite a lot, because the Retaliate is really, really bad. I mean, Retaliate 5, it basically means that your attack is, the value of your attack is not worth it. Taking 5 damage to maybe do an attack of 3 or 4 is bad value, right? It's bad. I mean, if it would kill him, obviously you wouldn't take the Retaliate and it's absolutely worth it and you would win the scenario. It might be worth to take 5 Retaliate damage at some point if he's low and it's just worth trying to kill him and just take the 5, but you're probably not going to be able to afford to take that 5 very regularly, and the initiative that this guy can do that on is 11, 14 and 17. So although the Scoundrel can go earlier than that quite often, the Brute can't really. So something to think about, definitely. But yeah, this character, I think, this enemy, this boss, sorry, is fairly simple, I think, to defeat. The main problem you're going to have is getting through those first 2 rooms sort of unscathed and ready to go. But the actual boss themselves is very easy to manage because you can, like I said, immobilize just absolutely wrecks this boss, and wound as well is just super, super good. Okay guys, there you go. There is my guide to the Inox Bodyguard boss, which is the combined Scoundrel and Brute boss. I hope you liked this video. I've been asked to kind of make a bit of content around these boss fights because there's a bit of confusion as to how you actually get to them and how you defeat them, because some of them are quite hard and the game doesn't do a great job in Guildmaster like telling you this is what you need to do to go after this particular boss. So hopefully you found this interesting or useful if you're just trying to find the bosses. And yeah, if you did enjoy the content, please do toss it a like and consider subscribing if you haven't already. I also stream regularly on Twitch at twitch.tv/mandatoryquest every Monday, Wednesday and Sunday, so come hang out and play Gloomhaven live with me there. But apart from that, guys, I will see you in the next video. Bye.
I think still, yeah.
That's the blessing from Cowboy.
Yeah.
That's the blessing from...
Isaac, at this point, can we get your approval to add an additional attack modifier deck for allies in the digital version?